Hi folks, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. So if you've been following me for a while, I make talking head videos on this channel, and one of the most mind-numbingly boring parts of my editing process is to cut out all the dead air in my raw videos. So those are all the silent bits when I'm not talking, when I'm just scrolling around, or when I'm thinking about what to say next. And for a long time, I've been thinking, well, that's got to be automatable, right? But I just couldn't find a very good solution. So finally, I found a video and a script by Donald Fury, which does this with a combination of FFmpeg and MoviePy, a Python script that uses MoviePy to cut out all the dead air from a video. So pretty much everything that I'm showing you, most of the credit for that goes to Donald Fury. So please go check out his channel to give him credit where credit is due. So I've been using his script over my last few videos to cut out all the dead air, and mostly it works pretty well, but I did have a couple of small issues. So I've also been refining the script over the last couple of weeks. One of my issues was that it depends on the silence detect filter in FFmpeg, and at least for me that flakes out sometimes. It leaves in long stretches of silence and fails to detect them, and then I have to import that into a video editor and then manually cut out those pieces of silence. And also the original script has this kind of two-step process where first you run FFmpeg, the silence detect filter of FFmpeg, to detect all the silent parts, and use the output of those detected parts as input to your MoviePy Python script to render the final video. And what I've done is kind of consolidated it into one script. It doesn't depend on FFmpeg anymore, and it does the job in one invocation. So let me just quickly walk over what's happening in my script, and links to all this code and links to Donald Fury's channel and his original script are all going to be in the description. So here's the core logic of how we detect silence. This is a method that takes the entire audio of your video as an input. We have a parameter called window size, and this is in seconds. So we're using a window size of 100 milliseconds. And this is the window size that your audio gets chopped into, and where we try to look for silence in each of those windows. So with a window size of 100 milliseconds, your entire audio clip gets chopped into bits of 100 milliseconds, and we look at each 100 millisecond window to see whether it is silent or not. Volume threshold is the threshold where if the volume of a window is below this, it is considered to be silence. And ease in is a parameter, again in seconds. So here we have it set to a quarter of a second, which adds a little bit of silence at the beginning and end of a speaking period. And the reason we do this is because if you didn't add that, the transition would be too choppy. There would be no breathing room between the end of one talking bit and the start of another talking bit. So let's look at the logic of how this method works. This is basically the core logic. Everything else is just cutting and pasting videos around. So what we're doing is we're looking at our audio clip in chunks of window size at a time. So the total number of windows is just the length of the audio clip divided by the window size. And now we go over the entire audio clip one window at a time. So in this case, 100 milliseconds at a time. And we extract that window with the subclip method. And these are all API methods taken from MoviePy. We look at the maximum volume of that window. And if that maximum volume is less than the threshold, we deem that window to be silent. So what this for loop is computing is a giant array where each element of this array is a Boolean indicating whether the corresponding window is silent. Once we have that, we now start to find our speaking intervals. So once again, we iterate over all our windows. And here we start from the first window rather than the 0th window because we want to look one window behind us. So we look at windows 2 at a time, the current index and the one just behind us. And we can then look at whether there is a transition from silence to speaking or from speaking to silence. If there's a transition from silence to speaking, we note down the timestamp of that transition. That will be the start of a speaking interval. And then if we see a transition from speaking to silence, again, we note down the timestamp of that transition because that will be the end of a speaking window. And now that we have our two ends of a speaking interval, we add this ease in factor just to give a little breathing room between cuts. We subtract it from the beginning and add it to the end. And now we have to do one very corner case special thing to handle the fact that with really tiny windows, when you add the ease in factor, sometimes two successive speaking intervals can overlap by just a bit, and you don't want that to happen because you'll get choppy video if you do that. So we just have a little bit more logic to see if our current speaking window overlaps with the previous speaking window, and if so, we merge those two intervals. So that was the core logic of figuring out all the speaking intervals throughout our video. Once we've done that, the rest is mostly just collecting video subclips. So here you see we get all the intervals that we are speaking, the intervals that we want to keep by invoking this method we just went over. And then MoviePy has a subclip method on video as well, which tells you to get a subclip with a start and an end timestamp. So we get all the subclips where we are speaking, the subclips that we want to keep. And then finally, we use another MoviePy method to concatenate all these subclips. And we write out the video that consists of all those subclips where we are speaking. And that does it. That's pretty much it. So just run the script on your raw talking head video and you should then get a video with just the speaking parts. You might still have to bring it into a video editor to do some post-processing, or maybe cut out the parts where you flubbed, or cut out the parts where even though you're speaking you want to cut it out. But at least all the repetitive boring work of cutting out the silent bits has been automated. So I hope you find that helpful. All the code links are in the description below, and I will see you next time. Thank you.